Would you be the jerk for refusing to buy a gift for a parent who keeps selling their own kids' belongings? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for not letting the previous owner of my house come back in to see it again after she had moved out? I, 25-year-old female, have been living at this house with my parents since 2020. This house was built and owned by one family before us. The OG owners were a carpenter, his wife, and their daughter. The owner and his friends moved out to the country and built houses all next door to each other in 1976, so them and their families were all super close. The owner's wife passed away in 2014, and the daughter moved out in 2015. The guy kept living here by himself until he passed away in 2020. After his passing, his daughter traveled back to the state and sold the house to us before leaving again. When we moved in, we found a few boxes of old family pictures, expensive carpentry tools, and we found some super expensive cooking supplies. We contacted the daughter of the owner so that we could return the items to her, but she didn't answer. Over the years, we continued to try and contact her through text messages, phone calls, emails, and we even tried to have the neighbor contact her. In 2022, she finally answered and screamed at my mom for continuously trying to talk to her. My mom explained everything to her, but the girl said that she didn't want any of her parents' things. Then she called my mom a few explicit words and hung up. After that situation, we stopped trying to contact her, and we sold the carpentry tools, sold some of the cooking supplies, and we gave the family pictures to the neighbor that we knew was friends with the previous owner. We thought that was the end. However, last week I was in the backyard and my neighbor called me over to his fence. He had a younger woman with him who introduced herself as the girl who used to live in the house that I live in now. She thanked me for giving the family pictures to the neighbor, and then she asked me about the carpentry and cooking supplies. When I told her that we sold them, she lost her mind. She was angry that we would get rid of something that was so meaningful to her parents. When I explained that we had tried to give them back to her, she called me a liar and a jerk. Then she asked to see the inside of the house for old time's sake, but I didn't like how she treated me and I didn't like what she said to my mom in 2022, so I told her no. This made her get even angrier and it made the neighbor angry as well. They both yelled at me while I hurried inside and locked the doors. About 10 minutes later, the girl was banging on the front door saying that she wanted to come inside. My parents told her through the door that she couldn't come in. This made the neighbor ticked, so he joined her and nearly left a dent in the door. We asked them to leave for over an hour before they finally left. Now it's been a week and all of the neighbors know about what happened. They keep giving us dirty looks and doing that classic old person thing of grunting whenever we try to talk to them. They all adore that girl because she grew up hanging out with them and their kids, so now we're the most hated people in our neighborhood. Am I the jerk? I would say as long as OP knows for a fact that they absolutely got the right person back in 2022 and they weren't necessarily like harassing some random person with the wrong phone number or something, then I kind of fail to see how OP could be the jerk. I mean, it's been 3 years. She said she didn't want the stuff back. What is OP supposed to do with it? Even if OP and their family let her in to take a quick look around, does anybody feel like that would have fixed anything in this situation? USS Virginia commented, "Not the jerk. Info, why didn't y'all call the cops?" OP replied, "We didn't call the cops because the neighbor's son is the chief of police. We live in a super small rural country town with like 5 officers including him, so we just let them knock until they got tired." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to clock out early so my coworker can take her kid to the hospital? I, 31-year-old female, carpool to work every day with 4 coworkers. We all live about an hour away from the office and have been carpooling ever since they forced us back to full-time in person so that we could share commuting expenses, gas and tolls. One of my coworkers, let's call her S, has a young child who recently got very sick. For the last few days, he's been having constant nosebleeds so bad that he's even gone through an entire roll of toilet paper trying to stop the bleeding. Last Sunday night, it got so bad that they took him to the hospital. On Monday, she still came to work as usual and didn't mention anything about it until we were all driving home. That's when she told us she hadn't asked her boss for time off to take her kid to the hospital because she didn't think she would be allowed. She also said that if she doesn't get him seen soon, he could die. She asked if the next day we could all take her car instead of the usual drivers, let's call him A, and if everyone could clock out at 4:45 instead of 5:30. 5:30 is when A and I normally finish, the other three clock out at 5. We told her that we would think about it and would need to clear it with our managers. After talking it over, A and I decided we would just find another ride home so S could leave whenever she needed. The plan was she would drive her own car to work, we would all ride with her in the morning, and then in the afternoon, A and I would get a ride with someone else so she could go straight home and get her kid to the doctor. When A called her later on that night to explain this plan to her, she got furious. She accused us of being heartless and not caring about her child, said, "What goes around comes around," and then dramatically announced she would just reschedule the doctor's appointment so it wouldn't inconvenience us. Even though we never asked her to do that, and even though she had just told us an hour before that her son's nosebleeds haven't stopped and he could literally pass. I'm angry because she was the one who originally said she would take her own car and drop us off so she could go straight home to her kid, and we were totally fine with that plan. But we knew there was no way our managers would let us leave 45 minutes early for someone else's child. A and I don't have children, but honestly, if my kid was bleeding that much, I would have called out or left early the day before and taken him to the ER, not shown up to work and dropped the news casually on the commute home. I'm also confused and concerned at her saying that her kid could die, but yet she's scheduling a doctor's appointment instead of dropping everything and taking him straight to the ER. So, am I the jerk for refusing to clock out early so my coworker can take her kid to the ER? I fail to see how OP could possibly be the jerk here. This mom, if what she's saying is true, which honestly a person like that saying the things she's saying and acting the way she is, I don't know if I would be willing to believe anything that comes from her. But if it is true, she is being so neglectful as a parent. Like, to the point that if you have CPS wherever you live, you should probably try to contact that the way she's acting. If your kid is getting so many nosebleeds that they might pass on, why are you worrying about getting home at 5 o'clock? What does it matter if you go home at 9 p.m.? The ER is still open. I mean, to some degree, I do get it. With my insurance, I pay $500+ just for walking into the ER. But it's not that much of a negotiation if your kid is at the point of passing on. Wandering Storm commented, "So is she taking the kid to the doctor or the ER? Because you don't schedule an appointment with the ER, and she should know that an ER is for emergent issues, not chronic nosebleeds that need to be treated by a primary." That being said, not the jerk. This is her kid, not your responsibility. Carpool aside, it's a bit ridiculous to expect multiple people to change their work schedules for someone else's child. OP replied, "She told us she needed to take him to the ER and then said she was going to schedule an appointment with a doctor. I'm equally confused." Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my roommate I won't be changing my habits because of him bringing his friends over? I, 23-year-old male, rent a house with 4 of my buddies from college. We've done this for 2 years. It helps that not only are we great friends, but we have a system of deciding house rules. A majority vote. Disagreements on cleaning? Majority vote. When to make quiet hours for the night on weekends? Majority rules. It has kept everything flowing smoothly. Anyway, one of my friends moved out last month to get a place with his girlfriend. He found a friend of a friend to take over his room. The guy was nice enough, but then he came to us with a declaration. Apparently, he was uncomfortable that we're not always completely dressed in the house. No one is a nudist, but some of us will sometimes not wear a shirt or just be in pajamas or boxers or underwear when lounging around the house. I admittedly am one of the 2 of us that does it the most, as I usually just lounge around in boxers or other underwear. We all met each other through a sport, so we're comfortable seeing each other like that. Anyway, I guess the new guy was caught off guard because he asked if we could constitute a clothing on rule in the house. As usual, we did a vote, and the rest of us thought it was unnecessary, so there was no rule. But I did start wearing clothes more, though there were some times I didn't bother. When I just woke up, after showering, when I was just coming out to my room for something, just to be considerate. Apparently not enough. I noticed that even though we always all gave notice before people coming over, he stopped doing so. I found myself a few times just in my underwear when he rolls in with a crew. Got a couple of weird looks, but I just excuse myself and get dressed. I told him once if he gave me a heads up, I would be dressed before they got there, but he just rolled his eyes. One of my other housemates has also run into this issue. Anyway, the other day he came to me and my other housemate and asked if his plan to shame us for never wearing clothes worked. We looked at him weird, and he said that he was purposely trying to embarrass us by having people see us. We said we're not embarrassed, we work out for a reason, and weren't going to change this habit. He stormed off and started smack-talking us to the other roommates. Am I the jerk? Admittedly, I haven't experienced living in like a shared roommate type situation. I have lived with family before, and you do sometimes just lounge around in your underwear. I'm gonna say not the jerk. It's not like OP and the other roommates are walking around just literally hanging brain everywhere they go. And they live and die by the majority rule system, which said that they could do that. Selmalite commented, "You voted. He decided to try and change it by exposing you to random people. Sounds like he needs a 'this isn't working out, we're looking for a new roommate, feel free to start packing now' talk." Our next story is, am I the jerk for letting a kid go home with his actual parent? I was asked last minute to give a ride to a child on my son's soccer team by my wife and the child's mother, Dana. She's a single mom who's friends with my wife, and they have a weekly ride-sharing system that works for her and my wife. Since my wife is out of town, I agreed with no issue to take the kid to the game. In the past, when I've taken him, he's gotten picked up back at our house after the game or practice by Dana. This time at the game, Dana's ex Jay arrived toward the end. I know him from their time together, and while I've heard terrible things about him through my wife, most of it is relationship stuff between them, and I've never had an issue personally with him. Dana's mother was having a casual convo with him, which I interrupted to ask if he, Jay, was taking the kid home. He said yes. The grandmother didn't object, she just asked me to tell her daughter that her phone battery had died. When I get home, my wife is irate, saying I left the child with an abuser and how could I allow him to take the kid? She said I was irresponsible and was potentially putting the kid in danger or allowing him to be kidnapped. I think at most this is a misunderstanding, but my wife says I'm in the wrong. Am I the jerk for not being more aware of the ride arrangements and plan for the child getting home? Edit, I'm not a fan of his after their divorce, but they do have their own custodial arrangements. Based on what's been shared with me, he hasn't been accused of any abuse toward the kids. The only time I've seen him since their divorce is when it was his time with the kids. The child could have went home with his grandmother, whom he lives with. I left him with both of them. Update, I messaged Dana and asked if I messed up. She said no, everything was fine, and his dad just came to say hi. The child went home with his grandmother. I think the main problem here is OP didn't do their due diligence in making sure that this kid that they agreed to be accountable for was actually going home with the person who they were supposed to go home with. You know, assume all you want about whether or not Jay is a suitable person to take the kid home, but do you really want to take that 1% gamble on hearing back at the end of the day, you let him go home with who? You know, being responsible for causing the question of, where did my kid go? Hikaru Toya commented, I was willing at first to say that if the kid shouldn't be picked up by their dad, the mom should have communicated that, but I've heard terrible things about him through my wife, quote. My wife says I left him with an abuser, quote. So it sounds like you knew that their split was more than just a couple with irreconcilable differences, but you dismissed it. You are the jerk. Our next story is, am I the jerk for showing up to my nephew's birthday party without the cupcakes I said I would bake? A couple of weeks ago was my nephew Sam's 10th birthday. I love Sam so much. I probably will not be lucky enough to have my own son, so I'm happy to be able to know him, but I don't have a great relationship with my older brother. He did everything the right way. Good grades, good school, good job, good wife. I've always been jealous at how easily being normal comes to him. I didn't do well in school. Got in a lot of trouble, didn't finish college. I've picked crappy boyfriends, basically every wrong choice you could make. Suffice to say, he and I are not on the same page, and he doesn't take me seriously. But the one thing he does appreciate is that I can bake. He asked if I can bake cupcakes for the party in a Spider-Man theme. Of course. Edited to add that Sam did not know. They were going to be a surprise. Spider-Man is just his favorite superhero. Well, then I was laid off. I didn't do anything wrong except be the last person hired. I was devastated and ended up drinking with my roommates instead of baking the cupcakes. It just felt like another in a long line of stupid things. I ended up going to the grocery store and buying cupcakes at 2 different stores, which was hard on the bus, but it was important. Thank God it's graduation season. I showed up and told my brother up front what happened and apologized. He said, "You've got to be freaking kidding me." He was furious. I apologized a bunch of times. I never once made an excuse. It was 100% entirely my fault. He told me I shouldn't have even come and the cupcakes were the only reason he had invited me. I felt awful and left without seeing Sam. My mom called me when I was on the bus ride home to ask me why I would be such an airhead and show up without the one thing I was invited for. She said she thought she raised me smarter than that, but then said, "Well, I guess not," with an ugly little "ha" at the end. I accept that I'm fully 10,000% responsible for not having the Spider-Man cupcakes, but I think I did my best to try to make up for it by getting any cupcakes I could find. I didn't show up empty-handed. I didn't put it on them to come up with a solution. Am I wrong? And was it the wrong thing to do? So I was fully prepared to say that OP might be the jerk here because, they made a promise and then they just didn't show up with them. But based solely on how OP was treated, I'm going to take that right back and say not the jerk. I think Sam not knowing about it does help, but man, OP didn't deserve to be treated like that. Being told to their face, "The only reason I invited you was for the cupcakes." I hope OP finds a way to stay in touch with their nephew, but they shouldn't contact or be involved with any of the rest of that family. Their own mom says that stuff? Our next story is actually an update. Am I the jerk for showing up to my nephew's birthday party without the cupcakes I said I would bake? Hi, thanks for all of the comments before about me failing to bring the Spider-Man cupcakes to my nephew's party. I think I have an okay update to share. I was sort of spiraling when I wrote my post before, and that it happens very often to me. Yes, I messed up, but life goes on. I've not been able to find a good job, but I have been making ends meet with cleaning houses. Last week, my family got together for Thanksgiving, and I surprised my nephew by bringing him a small batch of Spider-Man cupcakes, and he was over the moon. My brother thanked me for it, so that was nice. My mom said, "Better late than never, I guess," and she and my dad laughed together. I also baked a pie to bring, but I ended up dropping it. For the first time in my life, I stood up for myself against them, and I told them that it was really hurtful that they can't ever just be supportive. That post made me reflect on all the ways over the years they just haven't taken me seriously or have ignored my small wins because I don't get the big ones like my brother. They argued with me, and then probably the best thing ever happened. My sister-in-law stood up for me. She said that ever since she's been a part of this family, she's seen the way they talk to me and about me and laugh at me behind my back and treat me like someone else's daughter. She said they've been doing it for years. They tried to pull the "she knows it's out of love" card on me, and I told them that I don't feel loved by them and never have, and brought up that she said the only reason I was ever invited to that party was for the cupcakes. Mom tried to say that wasn't true, but my sister-in-law stopped her and said that's exactly what she said. My mom and dad were quiet for a little bit, and then my dad said he didn't realize how sensitive I am, and they'll try to do better. I was so happy. Yes, I thanked my sister-in-law so much, and we've been texting a ton. I didn't realize she liked me. I think 2026 is going to be my year, and I'm excited. My biggest hope is to find a job that helps me save money so that I can get my own place by 2028. Merry holidays, everyone. The parents are still absolute jerks here. I don't know if it registered truly for OP here, but the dad saying, "We didn't realize how sensitive you are. We'll try to do better," isn't an apology in any way. Maybe they'll be a little bit more reserved in front of OP and the sister-in-law, but they're probably still going to be the same old jerks saying exactly the same stuff when OP's not around. Expert Strategy 5191 commented, "And they still didn't take responsibility by saying they are wrong, just saying you are sensitive. That's bull. Way to go, sister-in-law." Hippopotasaurus Rex replied, "Oh, that's part of the boundary-stomping jerk family playbook. If you ask my mother or family, I'm sensitive. If you ask anyone outside of my family, I'm an emotionless robot." Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my friend to deal with the consequences of disrespecting girl code? I, 23-year-old female, live in a dorm with 3 other female roommates. In an adjacent dorm, we have another group of girls that we also hang out with. We'll use pseudonyms for clarity. Just for context, we have all been friends for 3.5 years of college. During those 3 years, my roommate Elle had a boyfriend and a friend in the other suite. Liz also had a significant other. 6 months ago, both relationships ended and Elle ended up reaching out and suddenly dating Liz's ex-boyfriend. When Elle told me that she had started the relationship, she asked my opinion, and I told her that if Liz and the other girls find out, they will be ticked at you for disrespecting girl code. If you're okay with them being mad at you, then do whatever makes you happy, but accept your consequences. She agreed and said her new man made her happy, so it was worth it. Fast forward to when Elle finally reveals to Liz that she's dating her ex. Liz tells Elle that inevitable, "I hate you and never want to see you again." Soon after, the rest of the girl group feels very betrayed by Elle's decision and no longer wants to be friends with her. Over the past few weeks, Liz will host events that everyone but Elle is invited to, and Elle cries that she feels extremely isolated and doesn't know how to regain Liz's trust. I tell her that I told you that there would be consequences to your actions, and there's nothing I can do to fix that. She gets mad at me for not supporting her relationship/her happiness, and I must not care about her because I still hang out with the gang. So, am I the jerk? I feel like it's pretty understandable that if you're now with their ex and hooking up with them, it probably is going to create some kind of weird feelings and dynamics. Especially if, from the sounds of it, Elle wasn't that upfront and just communicative about it with Liz. Maybe it would have been a little bit more differently if Elle, way ahead of time or very early on, did mention to Liz that this was happening. Jay Gagnon commented, "Everyone here is in middle school." Storm Tomcat replied, "I feel like we need to know why Liz broke up with her ex before we can make that call, no? After 6 months you still don't know my Starbucks order is very different from, say, the guy applying to work a free summer internship at ICE, eh?" Our next story is, am I the jerk for not realizing how much help my pregnant sibling needed? I, 40-year-old female, have a sister, 38-year-old female, who is 7 months into her second pregnancy. She is married and also has another child who is 3. Recently, some extended family reached out about wanting to get together, and we were supposed to go to a restaurant for dinner. My sibling asked me about switching it to her house, since it would be easier for her. We decided we would order food so she didn't have to cook, and briefly threw out some ideas. A few days before, my sibling made a passive comment that she would be cooking because it would be too expensive to cater, and I said I was confused because we were all going to contribute. Sibling still insisted on cooking, so I rolled with it and we sorted out what I would bring. We chatted about other stuff up until the day before dinner. Everything was fine. The day of dinner, I called my sibling 2 hours before the scheduled time so I could let them know I was heading over a little early to help. I got my butt handed to me that my pregnant sibling had been spending all day cleaning and preparing while I thought I was going to just show up an hour before. That they only agreed to lend me their house to host, I swear this was never said, and that I should have been there hours ago helping out. I started to say, "Hey, I'm sorry if you needed me there earlier, all you had to do was ask," and got screamed at that I should have known and that everyone was saying how wrong it was for me to throw this dinner on the pregnant woman and that I look like a real jerk to the family as she hung up on me. A subsequent phone call to my mom ended with an angry, "She's pregnant and you're upsetting her" justification without any opportunity to hear my side. I'm sure there is an element of hormones at play, but I don't think it's fair that I'm automatically wrong and the jerk because someone is pregnant? So Reddit, am I the jerk? ETA update. I ended up calling my extended family and saying that it was too much for my sister with her pregnancy for all of us to be at her house and that we needed to cancel or move the location. My extended family then called my sister, who told them she was sorry but dinner was canceled. Dinner didn't happen. I agree with some comments that my sister thought she could handle it and then got overwhelmed. I suspect the husband wasn't being much help, so she got on his case, in which he may have turned around and said, "I thought you were planning this with your sister, why isn't she here helping?" to get her off his case, which set her off on me. When I said, "Why haven't you called to ask where I am if you felt I should be there already? Why are you waiting until I call you?" she told me it was common sense and courtesy that I should have known she would need help. That this was my plan with our extended family, and she was being kind enough to lend her house. I pointed out that it was her idea to move locations and was told, "Irregardless, Mom will not fight with sister because she's afraid of losing access to the grandchildren. I'm upset and embarrassed at the dysfunction, and I know I'm not going to get an apology. My sister will just avoid me, then want to act like nothing happened, as per her MO. How could OP be the jerk? The sister took over all of the planning, the location, and whatnot, and then turns around and gets mad at OP for not, being a mind reader, and somehow not having the sibling telepathy to know that they suddenly need help that OP has to go rushing out for?" Greek American Dom commented, "Not the jerk. So your sibling moved the location of the meal because it would be easier for her and is now making a fuss because of all the work involved? Your sister made a series of decisions that created this situation and at no point said anything or reached out for help. This is all on her. You're not a mind reader. You couldn't know. And at every turn you offered solutions that would have in fact made things easier. Your sister needs to get over herself." Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my daughter-in-law that I got the iPads for the kids, but I've locked her out of the settings? My son works on cargo ships. He's hard to contact and is gone for weeks to months at a time. He will not be around for the holidays. He is married to Daisy. Life has been rough for the couple the past 2 years. Daisy became unemployed and hasn't found work that's flexible enough with the kids. My son is gone often, so he can't help with the kids. A common issue that's been happening is that Daisy will sell the kids things online for extra cash. I really don't approve, especially since she's still getting her nails done every 2 weeks still. The kids get into trouble, and so she sells their things. My granddaughter only had her new Switch video game for 2 weeks before it was sold. Daisy claimed she was playing too aggressively with the game, but when I asked, she could not give me examples. So the $70 Switch game got sold on eBay. This also only ever happens with expensive gifts. I've talked to her about it, but she denies it. Daisy asked me to buy the 2 kids iPads for Christmas. They're expensive and I'm worried she's going to sell them, so I have them set up already and made it so she needs a password to get into the setting app. That way she cannot wipe them and sell them. I called her up today and informed her that I got the kids' iPads and explained that I put a password on the setting app. In short, she was ticked, but I made it clear this was the only way I'm gifting them the iPads. I've been getting texts constantly about me overstepping. Was this a jerk move? Should I get rid of the passcode? Update, I'm still going to give them the iPads and for the first few weeks, they will stay at my place and then I'll let them take them home, but I will be monitoring them. They deserve to have nice things at home, even if mom is a jerk. I'm also going to inform her in text that this is a loan, and I'm going to make it very clear that if she does sell them, I will file a report with the police and pursue it. I can literally see where the iPads are online. I don't like it, but she needs to stop doing this crap, and if I have to pursue it, then I will. Edit, she is locked out of everything. The cloud is in my name with my own passcodes. That's locked. I had the people help me do this, so no one else can get it. Unless she gets hacking skills to rival Apple engineers, she will not be able to wipe them. Also, I don't find it fair that the kid can't have nice stuff because of her. I only see them usually once every 2 weeks. They should be able to use their nice stuff at home or take it to a friend's house. I myself don't fault OP one bit because if I'm going to be spending the hundreds of dollars in buying these kids iPads, I want to be able to know that they're not going to be flipped on eBay for half the price just because mama needs a little bit more money to get her nails done. In a way, it's almost not really like giving them as a gift these items. It's more like, these are grandma's iPads and you kids are allowed to use them, keep them at your place and whatnot. I mean, if anything, I think it might even be good for OP to make it clear in a statement. The kids and the mom don't actually own those iPads. It's still grandma's. The Kraken commented, not the jerk. Make it clear that you are loaning your iPads to your grandchildren and that they remain your property. And if anything happens to those iPads, you will be calling the police. OP replied, I'm going to do this. This is the only way that I can make it very clear to not sell their stuff anymore. I'm also heavily pushing for her to get a job, even part-time. I'm done. I don't like the threat of the police, but I know it will scare her and stop her from selling it. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.